Hey everyone, before we begin this episode of Fish, we just want to let you know that we're starting a whole new thing.
Yes, and that thing is Facebook Live, and it's going to be every Monday at 5 in the afternoon, British time, and we're going to be on Facebook. We're going to be streaming a video of ourselves at facebook.com/no such thing as a fish, where we talk about the past week's episode.
That's the idea. We always, when we put these episodes out, get lots of emails, lots of tweets, lots of people in the streets running up to us and shouting that we got things right, we got things wrong, they want to add things, and we thought, why don't we turn it into a sort of post-episode book club where we talk about the previous week's episode. So come there armed with your facts, with your questions.
With your complaints, you know, if you think someone said something stupid, if Dan said another fact that wasn't true, if you think we missed a joke, we quite often get tweets or emails saying, I can't believe you didn't make this joke.
Yeah, maybe don't bring the abuse bit about my facts, but everything else, absolutely. Yep, so we'll be there 5 p.m. British time. It's facebook.com/no such thing as a fish, and we hope to see you there. Okay. So, yeah.
On with the show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of No Such Thing as a Fish, a weekly podcast coming to you from the QI offices in Covent Garden. My name is Dan Schreiber and I am sitting here with James Harkin, Andrew Hunter-Murray, and Anna Chazinski. And once again, we have gathered round the microphones with our 4 favorite facts from the last 7 days. And in no particular order, here we go. Starting with you, James Harkin.
Okay, my fact this week is that Guinness World Records have entries for most mousetraps released on the tongue, most matchsticks extinguished by the tongue, and most fan blades stopped by the tongue.
Wow.
Is it all the same guy?
No, different guys.
Most mousetraps released on the tongue.
And
Yeah.
does it mean the mousetrap is on the tongue, or does the tongue made its way into the mousetrap?
That wouldn't be very impressive, would
If
it?
you just balanced a mousetrap on your tongue and then it snapped against air in your mouth.
Yeah.
It's
No.
really not that. It's literally getting a mousetrap, sticking your tongue in it, and it just going snap.
Wow. What is the record? What's the most...
The record is 53. And it was done by a guy whose surname is Casey. I can't remember his first name. And weirdly, he did it at the Maryland Renaissance Festival, where they reenact things that happened during the Renaissance.
Oh, yeah.
That famous, I think that was under Louis XIV, wasn't it?
There's a tongue record that's missing from your
There's
list
a few,
there.
yeah, go on.
Yeah, this is my favorite one. The most blowtorches extinguished with a tongue in 1 minute.
So I want to compare matches to blowtorches then.
Yeah.
How many blowtorches?
48 in
Wow.
1 minute.
In 1 minute?
In 1 minute. It's this Australian guy from Byron Bay called Shane, but spelled CH. Shane Hultgren. He had a blowtorch in each hand, and he was putting them out with his tongue, and he did 48 in 1 minute.
Did you know that Shane Hultgren is married to Zoe Ellis, who holds the record for most mousetraps released on the tongue in 1 minute, open brackets, female, close brackets?
No!
Yeah, so they
Wow.
have a talented tongue.
Did they meet at that convention or whatever
Yeah,
it
and
was?
he said, "Pleased to meet you."
What? Just why?
Why did they marry?
Why do they do this stuff?
Because they want to get in the Guinness Book of Records.
That's fair enough.
So, for instance, the guy who did the most matchsticks extinguished is a guy called Ashrita Furman, and he holds a record for the most Guinness World Records. And basically, he just tries to beat as many world records as he can.
Wow.
So he also has records like pogo stick jumping underwater, longest duration.
Underwater, okay.
Much easier underwater, really,
See, I
isn't
think
it?
that trivialises the good name of the stopping a fan blade with your tongue Guinness World Records
You think
thing.
so?
Yeah.
Hopscotch, most games in 1 hour. How many do you think that is?
4?
20.
Well, I don't know how long a game of hopscotch takes.
Really?
Me neither. I can't remember how it starts or finishes.
It's 3,600 seconds in an hour. How long does it take to play a game of hopscotch?
Well, surely you can have unlimited people playing hopscotch, in which case it could take forever. But if there's just one of you, then you could do a game every minute.
Well, I think if you're trying to beat the record, you probably don't want infinite number of people playing.
Okay.
He probably did it on his own.
Hang on, I'm going to say it takes 20 seconds to play a game of hopscotch. So you played 180
do you know the
games
rules of
in-
hopscotch?
I think we've ascertained I don't.
So I think what you do, if my memory memory serves, is you throw a little stone onto the number 1, and then you hopscotch it around, and then you come and pick it up, and then you throw it onto the 2, and then you hopscotch round, and then you do 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
That
Is that
correct.
right, Anna?
That is correct.
And
Why
it
do you have
is-
to throw a stone to get onto the...
Well, that's the
Thing.
game.
It's just the game, because if you
It's
don't
like,
get it...
why do I have to hit this tennis ball over the net? What's even the point? It just keeps coming back.
But if you miss, do you have to throw again?
If you miss...
If you miss the 1, if I'm throwing my
Yeah,
stone
you
at the
do.
1...
If you were playing against another person, say you and I were playing, and you
Yeah.
missed the 2, then it would be my turn to aim for the 1. And it would be whoever completes it first.
I think I can see why tennis took off in a bigger way, to be honest.
I think if you're missing the 1, you're not made for that game, Andy.
All right, okay.
It's true. It's one of those, it gets progressively harder because the 10 is further away from the 1.
All right, then I'm going to say it takes 5 minutes to play a game of hopscotch, so I think he did 12 in an hour.
He did 33.
33. I said 40, did I say?
You said 20.
Great.
It's pretty good. That's pretty good.
But this guy Furman is quite good because he invents new things to beat records in.
okay.
So he invented a thing called land rowing, where you basically get a indoor rowing machine, you put wheels on it, and then you try and go as far as possible or as quick as possible. And he got the record in that because he invented it.
But did Guinness accept his invented new criteria, this biggest weirdo in the playground who keeps on making up new records to break?
It's
Don't they
interesting.
decide?
Yeah, you would think that. I reckon he must have friends on the inside, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's broken so many records, they kind of like him and they accept some of his more unusual ones.
Because they must see his number come up on the Guinness phone system in the office and go, oh no, what's he thought of this
And
time?
it's like, most phone calls to Guinness.
But are there rules about what you can do in terms of... Because they haven't got, like, the record for the fastest anyone's chopped their own hand off.
Yeah.
So where does it stop? Because you can put out a
yeah.
blowtorch on your
Well-
tongue, which I presume is quite painful.
Yeah. So they tend to accept quite a lot of things until someone says, no, this is dangerous. So, for instance, they stopped obese animals quite recently.
Oh, yeah.
Because there was always people saying, my cat is, the fattest cat ever. And then they said, well, actually, it's not very good to feed your cat Mars bars all the time, so maybe we shouldn't have this record anymore.
With the record for stopping fan blades,
Yeah.
are we talking ceiling fan?
Or one of those fans where you'd have to put your tongue in between the bits of caging in order to get
Surely
to it.
it's a little handheld fan.
And that
I have a feeling it isn't. I've seen a photo of it, but my visual memory isn't good enough to remember what it looked like, but I have a feeling it was quite a big fan.
right.
Like a big sort of one that you would get in a warehouse.
Come on.
Imagine you're at a rave and it's getting really hot in there, and so they get some kind of industrial fans to put in the corner.
Yeah.
That
It was
kind of thing.
implausible from when you said, imagine you're at a rave. Unless I'm there in an administrative capacity.
The only rave I ever went to, I got kicked out of for sleeping on the floor. And I was the one who got in trouble. I woke up, everyone was doing drugs around me, and they're like, hey, you can't do that in here.
Have you heard about the record for the longest tongue? This is another Guinness record.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the average tongue, the average person's tongue, is 10 centimetres from the back of the throat, right? The point is called the oropharynx. It's where it joins the back of your mouth.
Okay.
The man with the world's longest tongue, as of 2015, was a guy called Nick Sturberl, and he has a tongue which, when his mouth is closed, extends 10 centimetres out of his mouth.
When
So
it's
it's like he's
closed.
got an entire whole normal tongue outside his mouth.
But not when his mouth is closed, because when his mouth is closed, it'll be inside his mouth.
You
Yeah.
mean when his mouth is closed around his tongue?
Can he put it
Thank
back
you,
in?
Anna.
He can put it back in his mouth.
Yes, he can put it
presumably.
back in his mouth.
Does he roll it up like a party
No,
blower?
he doesn't roll it up like a thing.
He's missing a trick then.
He
Well, how
actually
does he
said it's-
fit it in?
Well, he says it's perfectly comfortable, doesn't he? Because
Yeah.
I would have thought that would be really uncomfortable.
He doesn't know any different, does he?
I think that's a really good point. Do you know what he uses his tongue for? He's a respectable man.
He advertises on it.
What,
he?
like
That's a
little
good idea.
banners?
Yeah,
that'd be great.
That would be cool.
Does he pretend to have a party popper, those things you blow, but he doesn't, it's just his tongue.
That's not what he does, no.
Does
But
he use it to point directions to strangers when he has both his hands full?
Yeah.
He doesn't. You're one letter off with pointing, though. He paints with it. So he said that he made the good argument that a gift is something that you're born with, that you get given, but to turn it into a talent, you have to use it in the best way you can, is his philosophy. So he's taken to painting with his tongue. And he calls it licking. So if he did, in fact,
Does
say,
he?
How did he come up with that? That's really good.
He's not
How do you say it
boasting.
again? Licking.
Yeah, so he'll say, I licked his favourite animal is a beaver, he claimed to...
Oh, come on.
I know, because he's got a sense of humour, this guy. So he'll say, I just licked a beaver, and that'll be, he just painted a beaver.
Oh, okay.
But we have a word for painting things.
Yeah.
Not with the tongue, though. This guy can call it whatever he likes.
We
He's the
can't-
one doing it.
Yeah, but licking is taken. It's
But
done.
that's not how it works with words.
But he does have to. He does have to wrap his tongue in cling film before he dips it in the paint.
Does
That
he?
makes sense.
Because the paint is acrylic, or who knows, it might be lead-based paint that he uses. Either way, he then has to lick the canvas with a cling film covered, paint-covered tongue.
Because he was inspired by someone he saw on YouTube, an Indian man who painted with his tongue, but who also got quite bad toxic fume poisoning. So he decided to avoid that. But do you know who he says his favourite artist is? When he was asked who his favourite artist was, his second favourite is Picasso.
Licasso.
Yeah.
Can you give us a clue?
It's
Is it someone like Picasso?
Is it one of those elephants?
Oh, that's unbelievably close. My clue is that Dan's really close.
The monkey, Bubbles.
Coco, the gorilla. So yeah, yeah, very good. On tongues,
Yeah.
there's a job which is a baby food taster. And I was reading, I think it was in The Guardian, a woman called Beth Anderson wrote a piece about what it's like being a baby food taster. So she's a super taster, which we've talked about before, which is people who have many times more taste buds on their tongues than normal people. And her company has just insured her tongue for £1 million.
Wow.
So valuable is her tasting abilities.
So that if she accidentally is looking near the skirting board and there's a mousetrap down there.
And she dives into it tongue first.
Yeah.
But she says she really tries to get into the mindset of a baby when she tastes it.
Wow.
Wearing a nappy.
Throwing up on her mum.
Sucking on people's nipples. No, she doesn't. She just says she makes a real effort to get into the mindset of a baby. So each time she puts a spoonful of pureed shepherd's pie in her mouth, she tries to remember being 6 months old again.
Just about like skillful tongues. There's a guy called Gliniecki. I can't remember his first name either. But he is one of the record holders in tying a cherry stem with his tongue. Do you know this kind of trick that people do?
Yeah, yeah.
So his the first time he ever tried it was in a bar in Florida, and it took him 20 minutes to do just one of them. And now his record is 679 stems in an hour.
Wow.
679 stems in an hour?
Yeah, that's a
no
lot, right?
way.
Well, way.
No way.
Wow.
That's
So
one
that's-
every 6 seconds.
That's good, isn't it? But then apparently he says if you try it, you'll get faster with practice. But if you master the skill, be prepared for relentless sexual subtext that comes with it.
Oh, poor guy. I bet he's really hating that.
Yeah.
Did he invent that practice?
No, he didn't.
Oh,
As in, it's
okay.
a reasonably common thing. I remember hearing about it when I was a kid.
Me
so-
too, yeah.
Apparently, you put it in your mouth, you fold it over by folding your tongue over. You know, like folding it backwards, and then you somehow manipulate the ends so that it goes into a loop.
Yeah.
This is so my brother does it, and then he's like, it's really easy, you just fold it backwards with your tongue, and then you're like, yeah, I've got that bit, and then you go, and then you just weave one bit through the other. What am I using to
Crazy.
do that?
Yeah.
My epiglottis? Knock it in with that.
If you are a sommelier, do you know what you should be doing with your tongue to keep it match fit?
Okay, so we're talking wine tasting here, are we?
We are.
You should dip it in olive oil once a day.
That's nice.
Should you hang it out of your mouth as often as possible so it gets aired?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
Is it that you rub it with something or you treat it with something?
sort of. Yeah. What they
We don't
do-
know, Dan.
Well, I know the one that I've got on the paper, but you might have all suggested correct answers as well.
see.
I phrased that really badly. I'm not informed on what you shouldn't do. The answer is that you should lick rocks.
Oh, come on.
Yeah,
What does
so
that do?
sommeliers,
Neutralizes?
it just it's to train their palate. So I guess it clears them, it roughs it up, maybe it releases certain things, but that's what they recommend. It's this new book that's come out called Cork Dork, and that's what you call obsessive sommeliers. Cork dorks.
Cork dogs. That's great.
Yeah, so the cork dorks, they lick rocks. They do tasting sessions at 10 a.m., which they call tongue cardio.
What? 10 a.m.? Tongue, the magic hour for the tongue.
Tongue cardio, yeah.
Can I just say one thing about tongue prints? I read an article, this was in a scientific journal, about how tongue prints might be a good thing to use instead of fingerprints.
Oh, wow.
And they said that it's good because you can stick it out of your mouth for inspection. Otherwise, it's well protected in your mouth. So, you keep it protected, but then you can stick it out. It's difficult to forge. according to them. According to them, the act of physically reaching or thrusting it out is a convincing proof for liveness in a person as well.
That makes a lot of sense.
I've always said that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're sort of in a passport queue and you're holding your person you've just murdered by the arm, you can shove their finger onto the print thing, and no one will be any the wiser.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Does it not suffer though from? Remember, there's that fact about how people in pineapple factories were losing their fingerprints because of the acidic quality of the pineapple.
There's an enzyme in it, yeah.
Yeah, and isn't there another fact that pineapples kind of eat our tongues as we're eating it? So wouldn't you be altering your fingerprints every time you had a pineapple?
Yeah, but then it's the same problem with the fingerprints, so it's no more problems than you already had.
Kind of, except all of us don't work in a pineapple factory.
But all of us don't eat pineapples constantly either. Presumably you're touching pineapples with your fingers as much as you're eating them, unless people are feeding you pineapples whenever you eat them.
I would hate to lose a case because the guy who robbed my house has a big love of pineapples.
But why would he have left his tongue print unless you had a collection of rocks that he loved and he was a sommelier?
Maybe he did some painting at my house.
When are you going to dust for tongue print?
Worst luck if you're a sommelier and you decide to rob a geologist's house.
Okay, it is time for fact number 2, and that is my fact. My fact this week is that Pope John Paul II's popemobile can be hired out for stag do's and hen do's. So this is the one that was built when he visited Ireland in 1979. And it was built by these two guys who were given a brief to build it. They weren't given too much money to build it. So some of the things that... Well, it was a problem because some of the things that are attached to the modern popemobile that Pope Francis uses, i.e. bulletproof glass, was not affordable for the one because no one was willing to pay for it. It cost like £200,000.
Yeah, they asked the government for the money, didn't they? But it never made it into their account.
Yep, exactly. So instead they used shatterproof glass. And one of the builders said, so, if a fellow threw a stone at the vehicle, the glass wouldn't break. That was the level of protection that the Irish popemobile was giving. But once he left, the popemobile remained in Ireland and it went to a museum. There were 2 of them, and they decided that it would be fun to rent them out for stag do's and hen parties, and that's what's done. And it still includes the original chair that the Pope sat on inside the actual car.
What does it look like? Is it like because I think of the popemobile as being basically a bubble.
You're thinking of like the golf buggy version of the Pope. There's many, like the Batmobile, there are many different versions.
No, there's only one version of the Batmobile.
No, there's plenty. You've got the Adam West Batmobile, you have the Christian
But they all
Bale.
look the same, don't they?
They look nothing
They're
like
all
each other.
black.
No,
They are.
They're not.
They're basically the same.
Guys, they're not. Look at photos. I can't believe we're having this chat. They are completely different.
How do you know it's a Batmobile then?
Because Batman's in it.
There are two.
Does any car become a Batmobile?
Yeah, for the purposes
So if I gave him a lift in my Mini, does that
the
become a
Batmobile.
Batmobile?
Yeah.
If he has to get a train to a crime, does that become the Bat train?
It's still mobile, so it would be a mobile.
Well, he has.
Oh, yeah, true, yeah.
He has a Batcopter, the helicopter.
Right.
Yeah. So you just put Batman in it and it belongs to it. So same with the Pope. Same deal with the Pope.
You put Pope in any car, it becomes a Popemobile.
Yeah.
So what do these stag and hen do's? Because surely it can only fit one person in it.
No,
which is
so
a pretty
this-
boring stag do.
No,
Very
you put
good,
the
cool.
stag in it, and then everyone else stands either side of it, kind of.
Throws rocks at it.
So what it had was a sort of a truck-like area where 15 people could sit inside, including the Pope. And then it had a balcony of sorts where the Pope came out to on the front to wave to people with a hand railing to make sure he didn't fall. That's why it can be lent out to stag do's, because up to 15 people or 16 people can be inside of it.
But it was €300 an hour to
Yeah.
rent, wasn't it?
Yes. And they kind of suss out what kind of stag do you're going to be, because obviously they want a bit of respect in the Pope's chair.
Yeah, you would. They said we'll be selective about who we choose.
Will
but
they?
I don't know how selective you can be with stag do's. Anything that's marketing itself as a stag do.
Oh, I don't know. I've been on some pretty respectful stag do's.
You were only invited for the admin, though, weren't you?
Yeah, that's true. I did the accounts and the billing stuff in the corner. Oh, dear. But Pope John Paul said he didn't even like the name Popemobile. he asked the media not to use the word popemobile because he thought it was undignified. So imagine if he could have found out what would happen to it after he left
Yes,
Ireland.
yeah. And same with Pope Francis in the modern one. They all hate the word popemobile because they think it sounds, as you say, a bit sort of...
Actually, Pope Francis doesn't like it at all, does he? He's very modest, and he thinks that you shouldn't be rolling around in this grand thing, especially for you. And he mostly just uses the vehicles that the Vatican has. It's got like a bunch of vehicles you can rent out. He drives himself around town on his own. He prefers to be out in the open, so he has an open top because there was an assassination attempt, and so since then they were often bulletproof and stuff. But he's like, no, I want to feel closer to my people.
Yeah.
So he just stands in an open top car.
He told reporters, it's true, anything could happen. But let's face it, at my age, I don't have much to lose.
Yeah.
It's a very relaxed attitude.
Yeah. And the current one that he has, you always see it going at about 10 miles an hour. But if it needs to make a sudden escape, it can go up to 160 miles per hour. Yeah, it could just jet away at 160.
I think that was the last Pope's, wasn't it? The golf buggy type one. The
Yeah.
There's no way
was-
that
There's no way
goes
that
that speed.
something that unaerodynamic could get up to 100.
Yeah, 160. Yeah.
No, it's impossible.
I think wings come out the side and it just balances it. But he's not driving it, so he'll
Isn't
just
he?
sit in the box. No, the
No,
Pope doesn't drive the
come
Popemobile.
on.
I thought you said
No, you're mixing up Batman.
you said he drives himself around. Do you mean in his little car?
I said that, and that's the latest one, drives himself around, just in the rental car.
Just rents a car.
It's special Vatican cars that they have.
And they
you
have
know, in
their
the
own
car park
license
beneath,
plates,
whatever.
don't they?
Yeah.
They all have a special Vatican City license plate
It's
number.
CV1, which stands for Stato della Città del Vaticano, which just means Vatican City, basically. But the local joke in Rome is that it stands for Se Cristo Vedesse. No. Hang on, James. Let me explain.
You don't need to explain the joke.
No, you're right. Let's move on.
But can you explain it, please?
It just means Se Cristo Vedesse. It just means if only Christ could see this. It's a joke about the Pope being Flash.
No, I get it.
Oh God. Okay, move on.
These two guys who built this original Popemobile that we were talking about,
Yeah.
they own this company called OBAM, and they were the biggest vehicle builders in the country at the time. They claimed to be the first people to make refrigerated trucks in Ireland, and this is the origin story of the company. They were in town one day having a pint. When they got a bus home, they noticed there were trucks going up and down the road and said, wait, we should start doing a business making trucks. And then they became the biggest truck makers in Ireland.
Wow.
And made the Popemobile.
Awesome origin story.
And the other thing about this Popemobile, the original one that we were talking about, is there is a place to keep a gun. And that was because US Archbishop Pale Marcinkus was with the Pope at the time. And he always carried a gun with him wherever he went.
I love the sound of this guy.
And this guy, a deranged priest, attacked him once with a bayonet.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so he always kept a gun by his
Attacked
side.
the Pope. He was
sorry.
going for the Pope. A deranged priest. Beautiful words. Ran at the Pope with a bayonet, and this guy, Marcinkus, managed to thwart him.
Wow. With his gun.
No, with his bare fists. And
Okay.
then from then on, when they built the Popemobile, they built this little pouch underneath Marcinkus's seat so that he could have his gun in there.
The last time that there was an assassination attempt on the Pope, it was this guy called Mehmet Ali Agca. And it was in 1981, and he'd actually escaped from prison in Turkey for another murder. But he tried to kill the Pope, and he went to prison, and he's been let out now, and he's done a bunch of things. First of all, he said he wants to meet the current Pope. So he
Sure he does. Yeah, bring him over.
No, but he feels really
Can you
bad.
bring the other Pope who retired as well?
Can they get that open roof car that he loves getting in?
He's seen the error of his way, so he also wants to convert to Catholicism. And one of the first things he did was he went and laid some roses at the John Paul II's tomb, who is the guy that he tried to assassinate. But he's also said, in 2010, he said, by the way, guys, I'm up for killing Osama bin Laden, if you guys want me to. He made the
Just
statement.
dress him as the Pope.
I think you're all being really cynical about this recently reformed man. He's also approached Dan Brown because he wants to write a book with him.
What?
Yeah, he wants to write a book of his life and adventures as a potential Pope assassin.
But yeah, so I quite like that all these countries around the world have Popemobiles waiting to go. So occasionally they bring a Popemobile in a plane if the Pope is visiting a country. So like the Beast, like how the American president has the big Beast car that gets taken overseas in the planes. They do that, but most countries, like Ireland, have one. Well, Ireland used to have one ready. I don't think they'll be using that one for Pope Francis's next visit.
Just wipe it down. It'll be fine.
Okay, we need to have it returned, Pope, by 7 because there's a stag do for Mickey going on, and. Okay, it's time for fact number 3, and that is Andy.
My fact is that there is no such thing as a manta ray. Okay, so just to clarify what a manta ray is before I blow your minds.
It's a type of fish,
It's a type of fish.
of which there is no such thing.
Yes.
And this is another thing, which is already part of a no such thing, which is also a no such thing.
Exactly, yes.
It's become kind of an antimatter podcast, hasn't it? A dark matter podcast.
So there is a new paper out about these things, manta rays, and you'll know what I mean when I say manta ray. The absolutely massive sail-shaped fish that swim through the water. They're really huge.
Sometimes you'll see it on the sidebar of the internet with one behind a lady in a bikini.
Yes, it's
What?
a very popular meme. It's a photo that was taken where 3 people were having the photo in the ocean, and suddenly behind them, a manta ray rises up and is photobombing them.
Oh, that's very nice. Okay, well, those things don't exist, basically. So there's a new study in the Zoological Journal of the Linnaean Society, and there are 2 species of manta ray, and there are 9 species of mobula ray, and this paper is arguing that manta rays have basically been miscategorized and that they actually all fit into mobula.
They're saying basically that they're all the same thing, but because mobulas were named first,
Yeah.
that everything has to be called mobula because you're always named after the first thing that gets named.
Yeah, and these are not different enough, basically, to be their own genus.
But the problem is, mobula is not a very common word, whereas manta ray is a relatively common word. So people are just going to carry on calling them manta rays, even though they're not really called that.
Yeah, I think even I may do, despite the fact that this is my fact this week.
No, I think we should start the campaign. Mobula's a funnier word, I think.
Yeah,
Mobula.
Mobula ray. Yeah.
Mobula's a bit onomatopoeic as well. I bet they make a sound a little bit like mobula in the water.
Do you think they do?
Do you think they
Yeah.
name themselves?
Yeah, I assume, isn't that what all fish do? You ask them what they're called, they tell you, then you kill them and put them in a museum.
Yeah. Unless you name them Alfred, which is what the reef manta is called.
What?
What?
It's called Alfred. It's called Manta alfredi.
Oh, that's cool.
That's his name.
Oh, yeah.
Is he named after Batman's butler?
That's right, yes. No, it's named after Queen Victoria's son, Alfred, who was the first British royal to visit Australia. So they were so excited about getting a proper royal over that they named a manta after him.
We actually got an email about this a couple of weeks ago from a guy called Rich Horner who works out in Bali at the exact spot where they were doing all of these
Do you
tests.
mean he works out in Bali or he works out in Bali?
He worked out in Bali, and between gym sessions, he wrote us an email. So he wrote us an email saying he's been dying to tell us this for ages because he listens to our podcast and it's been known for a while. So he said, news just in, there's no such thing as a manta ray. They've just been reclassified as big devil rays, brackets mobula rays, after a DNA study of them. I work in Bali on Nusa Lembongan, which I believe is an area that's pronounced differently, where we work with Marine Megafauna Foundation team to ID the manta rays here, creating a database of them all. We thought we had 30 to 40 of them 10 years ago, but by using their unique spot patterns on their chest and belly, we worked out that there were over 600 individuals here on our island. So the project was set up there by Andrea Marshall. Andrea Marshall was the subject of a natural history documentary called Andrea, Queen of the Mantis. And she was visiting the other day, giving us an update presentation on her current research, and then dropped the bombshell that her geneticist colleagues were writing a paper describing them as just big devil rays. I've been itching to tell you guys this for ages.
There
so
we
that's quite
go.
cool, yeah. And he's offered that if we want to go swimming with these new mobula rays, we're more than welcome to in Bali.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Do you think, was there a huge gasp in the conference where she announced that actually manta rays were just devil rays?
I reckon some people stormed out.
I think you're right. A few fainted, maybe.
Yeah.
It is big news.
It's huge
if you
news.
study
Yeah.
giraffes and you find out that they're actually just big deer.
Yeah.
That is huge. That's what this is like.
But there must be like people who study mobulas and people who study mantas.
Yeah.
And now there's only one job for those 2 people.
Yeah. Yeah. Sackings ahoy. Do you know they mate in a train?
In a train?
In a train of manta rays.
So like a conga line.
In a conga line. Yeah. God, you've been to some pretty spicy parties, haven't you, Dan?
If they're mating in a train, doesn't that mean you're always mating with someone who's actually mating with someone else, who's actually mating with someone else?
Oh,
No.
and is there always some poor mobile array at the front who's not getting any action?
Unless they do it in a ring.
Yes, unless it's a ring. Is it a ring? But that wouldn't be a train. That'd be a weird train.
It would be like a monorail.
Yeah.
I've got the answer here.
We'll take it.
So, no, it's up to 30 males follow around one female, right? And she leads them on a dance, and she tests their endurance to see if they're fit enough to breed with her. And eventually she selects one. She does a load of cool swooshy moves through the water.
So it's a bit like the conga, isn't
It is
it?
a bit like the person at the front sets challenges.
Yeah.
Well, no, they do a dance, don't
Yeah,
they?
you follow when the leg. Hey,
yeah.
yeah. You got.
And if you stay until the end, you get to have sex with someone. Is that it?
that's how it works. Yeah.
I love the conga. And eventually, the female at the front of the conga selects a single male, and they mate. But
That's cool. They are very social, and they hang out sort of in groups together, don't they? So they eat socially, like humans a bit, sort of, in that they do what's called stacking. So there's one manta ray that will be at the front, and that's the one who's doing most of the feeding, and then he'll eat a lot, or she will eat a lot of the plankton, and then the other plankton will be whipped around his body, and then will feed into the gaping mouths of the people behind him, and they switch round who's at the front. So they just take it in turns who gets to be the prime
it's
feeder.
very nice. It's really sweet.
Yeah.
Not if you're a plankton.
No, that's true.
No one ever
pretty
thinks about the
horrific.
plankton.
An absolute
Yeah.
wipeout if you're a plankton, yeah.
Because you think you've got past one of them. You're like, thank God for that. And then another one comes along and eats you. There is an article called How Do You Stick a Camera on a Manta Ray that I read. Do you know how you do that?
No.
Glue, super glue?
I mean, I read that they're naturally incredibly mucusy. So wouldn't it just... they're coated in mucus.
You lure them with a
so you-
handkerchief. That's what you do.
No, is it that you just pop it on them and the mucus...
No, well, that's one of the problems. So they usually put things on fish like with a suction cup, but the skin of the manta ray doesn't really allow for that. It falls off quite quickly. And so there were some scientists, and they had some peanut butter with them. And so they decided to smear peanut butter on the camera, on the suction pad, and it worked miles better, and they stay on for like 4 or 5 hours now.
Wow.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That's
Why do scientists have peanut butter but not an adhesive, a scientific kind of glue
crunchy
that
or
they can
smooth?
use?
Well,
That's the real question. Sorry, answer Dan.
I'll start with Anna's question. I think with proper adhesive, it might be difficult because it might be toxic, I suppose, or
Yeah.
you don't want it to stay on forever. It's quite good that it comes off after a few hours.
Yeah. All right.
And
I'll
then
allow it.
I've forgotten what Dan's question was.
Crunchy or smooth.
Oh, I actually deliberately forgotten about it.
Oh, sorry.
It must be smooth, right?
Yeah.
There is one amazing website called elasmo-research.something. And it just has a Q&A section about manta rays. It reads like it was written by a manta ray, basically.
Just complete nonsense.
No, it says, is it true manta rays have rescued fishermen? And the answer is probably not. If, apart from breeding season, mantas are not terribly interested in one another, they're probably not interested in hapless fishermen either. I know. They can recognise themselves in a mirror, we think. We're not sure. But if true, that is massive, because no fish has ever been shown to recognise itself in a mirror.
So when you say we think...
It's about how they act in front of the mirror as opposed to acting in front of another manta ray.
So, for instance, if I was to put a spot, I've got a marker in my hand. If I was to put a spot on your forehead and then showed you a mirror, you would likely, because you're an intelligent human, kind of try and wipe it off.
Got it.
And so if you did it to an animal, if you did it to, let's say, a shrew, and put a dot on their head, they wouldn't recognise that it's their head with the dot on it, so they wouldn't try and wipe it off.
Okay.
And if you did it to some primates, they would. If you did it to an elephant, they would. And I think what you're saying is manta ray would as well.
Well,
Right.
although the way they tested it with the manta rays
Peanut
this
butter.
time
Excuse me, you've just got a little bit of...
was nothing as advanced as that. They said that they put a mirror in front of the manta rays, and they noticed that the manta rays, first of all, they didn't seem to try and attack or interact with the thing in the mirror, which implied that they knew it wasn't another manta ray.
Right.
And second of all, they blew bubbles and made odd body movements as if they were showing off their own bodies in front of the mirror.
Wow.
I believe it. I completely dig it. And I think they do save fishermen, actually. I think they're very sweet.
Okay, it is time for our final fact of the show, and that is Jasinski.
My fact is that the former mayor of Bogota once hired 420 mime artists to make fun of traffic violators because he believed Colombians fear ridicule more than they fear punishment.
And what was he called?
He's called Antanas Mockus.
I call him Antanus Mockus.
I bet you do, yeah. It's not his name.
Oh my god, he's called Mockus, and
I
he hired
know.
people to make fun of other people.
Yeah.
It's perfect, isn't it?
You
Yeah.
think next he's going to get Antanuses.
It's not his name. Anyway, this guy, Antanas Mockus, is such an awesome guy. And so he was mayor a number of times, and he changed Bogota in so many good ways. So this policy really worked. He fired all the traffic police because they were known for being very corrupt and taking lots of bribes. And at first he replaced them with just 20 mime artists. And they would do things like if a pedestrian crossed the road at the wrong time, or if someone was waiting in traffic and is about to skip a red light, the mime artist sort of chased them or go up to their window and make mocking gestures at them. And they found that it really worked, and it reduced reckless driving and reckless pedestrianing, and so he added 400 more.
But if you hired mimes to replace your traffic cops, I think of traffic cops as basically mimes.
Yeah, they are.
They're just sort of doing the gesturing, like, come on, or no, you stop over here.
Yeah,
When they're
that's true.
doing stop, it's like they're in a tiny invisible box. Isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
true.
If you fail the mime exams, do you bump down and become a traffic cop?
Yeah, that's how it goes.
The other thing about that is if you like mimes, I don't think that many people do like mimes, but if you like them, maybe you would deliberately break the rules so that they came over and... You know when you're driving
Yeah.
and there's like a electronic sign, and if you're going over 30 miles an hour, it does a little sad face.
Yeah.
And I deliberately go at 31 miles an hour so that I get the sad face. It might be like that.
Because you like sad faces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it does a happy face if you go under.
Yeah, who wants a happy face?
Oh, dear. No wonder my text messages from you are so passive-aggressive.
See you later, Anna. Frown.
Yeah, he is an amazing character, isn't he?
Oh,
He
thank you.
He used to go around in the streets wearing a Superman outfit, claiming to be a character called Super Citizen. He's just one of the. It's just one of those crazy cool guys.
He didn't just do that for no reason. He did that while cleaning up the streets.
Yeah, he's
So
cleaning up the streets of crime.
He would I think it was rubbish.
That is a crime, though, dropping rubbish.
But that's not what like Batman means when he says he's cleaning the streets.
That's Batman's day job, actually. That's how he made all those billions.
Get the
But just
bat-tongs.
recycling like old bottles of...
You know when sometimes you can bring mugs back when you've drunk your mulled wine, you get £2 back.
Yeah.
That's how he makes his money.
To the bat bottle bin.
Yeah, so he did that. He also did a really cool thing, which is he launched this idea, which was called a night for women. And the idea was that all the city's men stayed at home in the evening, caring for the children, and the city's 700,000 women would go out.
And him.
And him.
Dressed as Superman.
Wow.
Yeah, he's just an interesting character,
Yeah.
isn't he?
And the idea of being that women felt uncomfortable sometimes because some people thought some parts of Bogota were dangerous at the time, and they feel much more comfortable if they go out and they don't see any men around, which I can tell you guys.
I'm so glad you're here to actually qualify the things I've said. I've just gone for the headline.
And it really worked. So he cut homicide rates by 70%, and he cut traffic fatalities by 50%. And he was actually a mathematician. So part of the reason people liked him was that he was a math professor who actually was sort of fired had to quit his job in 1993 because he was giving a lecture and the students in his lecture theatre weren't listening very hard, and so he dropped his trousers and mooned them all, and shortly afterwards resigned from the post of maths professor at the university and instead became mayor. But
He said when they asked him about that, he said innovative behaviour can be useful when you run out of words.
there you go.
And that was his thing. He was saying, no one's listening to me no matter what I say, so I'm going to show them my ass. And maybe they'll listen. And that's, like Anna says, that's how he became famous. And then once he became famous, then he started going into politics.
But hiring the mime sounds like he's also run out of words there.
Yeah.
You know, he's hiring people who aren't using words to solve another problem.
He's a man of action.
Yeah. He sounds amazing.
Yeah.
He is awesome. He brought the amount of money that was earned for the city way up, didn't he? In his
taxation.
time.
He said people could have a voluntary tax.
That's
said
right.
Volunteer to pay 10% more tax, and
they
thousands of
did.
people did.
Yeah. So another thing he did is that he asked people to call his office if they came across a very honest taxi driver, because he wanted to. 150 people called, and he organized to meet them all, and he came up with a group name for them, which was the Knights of the Zebra. And the idea was that they were just giving good impressions of good taxi drivers who exist on the beat, and if you were good, you might then become a Knight of the Zebra.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite good.
Which is a seriously cool title, which you definitely would try to be. If I was called a Knight of the Zebra, I would be better at my job than I am.
I was reading a bit about mimes for this fact.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Did you know that Marcel Marceau, that pretty much the only mime anyone can ever name, he once released an album called The Best of Marcel Marceau?
No, he didn't.
No, I'm getting to that, Dan.
Oh, okay.
There was once an album released called The Best of Marcel Marceau, which was 19 minutes of silence and then 1 minute of applause. And then the other side was exactly the same.
That's very good.
But it was produced as a joke by MGM. And his name was slightly misspelled on it, so we think it wasn't him. But he once, this is true, could not perform because the sound system failed.
Really?
Yeah. He was doing a sketch in it was a show in America in 1980, and it was accompanied by music, but then the music didn't work, so he said, this isn't going to work at all. So he just bowed, and the curtains closed.
Right.
And, yeah.
I just have one more creative thing people are doing to stop traffic violations.
Oh, yeah.
So in Shenzhen, in China, they have a problem with traffic violations, and they've tried all these creative ways of stopping them. So one of the things is that if you're caught jaywalking, then you're punished by being turned into a traffic warden, and you have to you have to catch the next jaywalker, and they make you wear this like.
That's a brilliant idea.
It's good, isn't
Great
it?
game.
And you have to wear a green hat, because apparently saying you're wearing a green hat in China is offensive, so you
That
have to wear
means
this fluorescent
cuckolded.
green. Exactly, because it means cuckolded, so
Yeah.
it's offensive.
Wait, so
kidding.
would this be immediately on the spot?
It's on the spot, yeah.
You
and
just have to take over the job of the
Yep.
current traffic warden?
Yep, if you're in a rush to get to work, too bad. You've got to put on your fluorescent green
Did they
hat.
get your job?
But another thing they're doing, as well as that, is they are stopping people from leaving their lights on high beam by, when the police see someone with the lights on high beam, they pull the car over and they make the person get out of the car and stand facing their own car with their eyes straight into the high beam lights and stare at the bright lights of their car for 5 minutes.
Wouldn't that send you blind?
No, it's just a bit annoying.
No? High
I mean,
beam?
it would, in the short term, you would have lights in front of your eyes when
It
you
would-
close your eyes,
yeah,
but
yeah.
you wouldn't go blind.
It would make you an extremely dangerous driver as soon as you set off again in your car.
But it's like, to punish you for drink driving, you've got to down this bottle of whiskey.
Okay, that's it. That is all of our facts. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to get in contact with any of us about the things that we have said over the course of this podcast, we can be found on our Twitter accounts. I'm on @Schreiberland, James,
At egg-shaped.
Andy,
At Andrew Hunter M.
and Jasinski.
You can email podcast@qi.com.
That's right. We can also be reached on our group account, which is @QI Podcast, and you can go to our website, nosuchthingasafish.com. That has all of our previous episodes. It has a link to our upcoming tour in October and November. It's also got a link to our book that's coming out in November, the book of the year. So please pre-order that now if you can. And also, if you like this episode and you want to discuss this episode, you want to bring in your own facts, you've got things to add, every Monday from now on, we are going to be doing a Facebook Live in which we deconstruct all the things that I got wrong in each episode, as well as adding facts we didn't manage to get in on time, new information we found out, as well as answering any of the questions you guys might want to ask us about that week's episode. So tune in. We're going to be doing it at 5 p.m. on a Monday. We'll put a link up on our Facebook page and on our Twitter to confirm the time. But why not join us? It's going to be awesome. Okay, we'll see you there. Goodbye.